What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and today I'm going to show you how I help my wife get her credit score from a 613 up to a 774 in 30 days. So I'm going to show you all of the tips and tricks to get your credit score up immediately and be able to keep it up so you can get approved for that next loan. So with that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chandler Smith and I am 29 years old. Over the course of the last 6 years, I've been able to accumulate over 100 doors of rental real estate. And the only way that that was possible is because I figured out what was required to get my credit score up and to keep it up. However, this last year, my wife decided she wanted to get into her first investment property, and it was a good time to do it because I was limited on the number of loans that I could get. You can actually only get 10 personal loans. Now, I've done business loans, not gonna talk about that in this video, but my 10 personal loans were used up. And so for us as a family to buy more real estate, my wife needed to be able to start using her loans because she has 10 as well. However, her growing up, she put no effort into building credit. And so we hopped on my FICO just to see where her credit score was, and they wouldn't even tell us what her score was because she literally had no credit. No credit cards, no credit history, no nothing. So we went in to pull her credit for the first time, and when it came back at a 613. Now, a 613 isn't terrible, but it definitely isn't what you need to be able to get approved for a loan. Luckily for my wife, I am very good at helping people to increase their credit score. And so in the course of 30 days, I was able to help her make certain moves to get her from a 613 credit score all the way up to a 774. So she could not only get approved for a loan, but get approved with the best rates on her loan for the first investment property that she purchased. And so in this video, I'm going to show you what we did to bump it up that quickly and what you can do to not only bump your credit up that quickly, but also keep it up throughout the process. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go through all of the tips and tricks you need to know to slowly build up your credit and to keep it where it needs to be. However, we used a little trick to be able to get my wife's credit up in under 30 days. And before I go into the consistent things you need to do, I'm gonna show you that little trick so you can immediately bump your credit up if you're in a situation where you need to be able to get approved for a loan. So this little trick is called becoming an authorized user. Now, the only hook with this, or the only issue you could run into, is finding someone who will let you be an authorized user on their account. Because what we did to immediately bump my wife's credit is I already had a very strong credit score. As a matter of fact, I was over an 800 credit score. So what we did is we went in and we made my wife an authorized user on 2 of my credit cards. We figured out when the bureaus reported, we waited until they reported. The second we knew that the bureaus had reported, then we went in and we had her apply for the loan. That's when her credit score came back as a 774. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, Chandler, there's no way you could bump her credit that much that fast. That's 161 points in under a month. And I know a lot of you are not wanting to believe that, but if you look right here, and I'm gonna actually put this up on the screen, this is where her credit score went to. If you look right, this is actually a love note from my wife, so we're not gonna look at that. However, I'm gonna pop it up on the screen. This is what it was. So you can see where it was and now where it's at. And so I promise you, if you have someone who has good credit and they trust you enough to make you an authorized user, that can immediately jump up your credit score. Now, not all people have a connection like that that's willing to do this for them, because keep in mind, they can jack up your credit score if they're an authorized user and they do dumb stuff with your credit cards. Luckily for me, I trust my wife, and it was a perfect way to jump up her credit score. However, if that's not an option, or even if it is, I'm gonna show you 6 huge tips that if you don't have the ability to become an authorized user, you can use these tips and tricks to get your credit score up very quickly. Now, if you do become an authorized user, you still need to know these tips and tricks to be able to keep your credit score where it needs to be. So the first thing that you need to know, and actually, I'm not even gonna go into the first thing you need to screenshot is this. Now I'm gonna put this up. This gives you the breakdown of how they get your credit score. And just knowing this breakdown is going to have a huge impact on the moves that you make and the things that you do so that you can build credit to a good score. So take a screenshot and make sure you get a picture of this and that you understand how it works. And if you don't, you can go and download My FICO Online. That's what I use to track my credit score and see how it's getting affected. It also gives you a ton of great tips and tricks on the things you can do to make sure that you up your credit score. But with that being said, hopefully you took a screenshot of that. So the first thing you need to do is start building a credit history. And the only way you can do that is if you go and get credit. So you need to go and get some credit cards. You need to always have at least 3 to 4 lines of credit at any given time. Now, I suggest going to a Wells Fargo, going to a Chase, going to a Bank of America, one of these tier 1 banks, and saying, look, I have no credit. What can I for sure get approved on when it comes to getting a credit card? Because I just want to get approved so I can start building a credit history. The other reason you want to go to one of these big banks is tier 1 banks are going to be a lot better than some random credit card because you're going to for sure be able to get approved if you do your research before on what you've got to do to get approved and what card you should apply for to make sure. That way you're not getting denied, it's still hitting your credit score and you're not getting any new credit history out of it. The other reason you're gonna wanna use one of these banks is certain credit cards have more power in upping your score than others. And I know a lot of people are gonna argue with me on this. They're gonna say, no, all credit cards are the same. No, some credit cards are better than others. If you go get a credit card from Home Depot, that's not going to help your credit score nearly as much as a credit card from one of the tier 1 banks. So make sure that you're going and getting at least 3 to 4 lines of credit. The other thing is if you can get multiple kinds of credit, that's also going to help your score. So it's important to always get credit cards, to get car loans, and to get a house loan. Because if you can get all of these, it's gonna build those different types of scores. And I don't wanna get too in depth in that, but if you already have a house loan and you're making payments and you're building history, that's going to give you a better score when lenders of homes are looking at your credit. Now, you can build up your credit good enough just from credit cards, but it's good to be able to get a variety because the more variety you have, the stronger you're going to be able to build that credit score and the more stable it's going to become. Now, this next step is going to crack you up because you need to get less new credit. Now, you're gonna say, Chandler, I just got credit cards, but you want me to get less new credit? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. That's what's so frustrating about your credit score. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to get credit as soon as you can. If you're young watching this, go and get credit right now because you need time to build your credit history. Usually your points will jump at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and a year. Like every 3-month period is usually when you'll see those jump. And so you've got to start building that history. If you've had multiple credit cards for 3 or 4 years, it's going to be so easy to get approved for other loans or other cards because you built that history and that's going to build your score. You want to be careful about applying for new credit if it's not essential. You only want to get new credit if you're doing it to start building your score with credit cards or if you actually need it, because otherwise any new credit is going to give a slight bump down to your credit score. So the second point was get less new credit. The third point, just to reiterate, is get a credit history. All right, you've got to make sure that you've got credit and you're making payments consistently on time over a period of time so that you have some credit history because that's really going to help you build that credit score. So they're 2 and 1, but they knock out number 2 and number 3. Now let's go on to point number 4, and that is your credit card utilization. Now, for some reason, whenever I bring this one up, everyone loses their mind because they're like, well, what's the point of even having a credit card if you're not supposed to utilize it? Well, here's the reality. You've got to stay under 10% utilization. So if you have a credit card that has a $1,000 credit limit, you can't use more than $100 of that. And I stole this little graph from another YouTuber. It's Ask Zibby. I think that's how you say it. Now, I don't follow his YouTube channel. However, I'm stealing his stuff, so go check him out. I'm sure he's awesome. But this is the graph he put up, and I think this is spot on. And if it's not, it at least teaches the principle that the more utilization you have, the worse off you are. Now, a lot of people say, well, Chandler, I'll just do a high utilization 1 month, and then I'll go back down to keeping it low. Well, it also looks at what your highest utilization was. So again, if you've got a credit card where you have a $1,000 limit and you use $900 of that limit, it's always going to remember that you used all of your utilization of that card, if that makes sense. So make sure that you keep it under 10% at all times. Now, I know a lot of you are crapping yourselves going, oh man, I've got a card that has a limit of $3,000. I use the whole $3,000 limit. Am I toast? No, you're gonna be okay. Just make sure that you don't use above 10% moving forward, and call the bank and see if they're willing to raise your credit limit. What this does is if you can raise your credit limit from the $3,000 you're at to $8,000 or to $10,000, now the most you've ever utilized is 30%. Rather than 100% like you had before. So it will hurt initially because you got more credit, but immediately it's gonna bounce back and above because your utilization has gone down and your overall utilization has gone down. It'll also give you more freedom to use under your 10%. If you've got $10,000, that gives you a whole $1,000 to play with rather than just 100, because you still wanna make sure you're using these cards every month. But make sure, again, you look at that graph, look at all of these things. They're very helpful, but make sure you keep your utilization, 9% or below, and that's gonna help you raise your score quickly. All right, number 5, and this should probably be like number 1 most important, just make sure that you make your payment on your credit card and pay it off to 0 every single month, all right? You're being an idiot if you're leaving money on your credit card month after month. Now, if you are gonna leave money on your credit card, make sure you at least make the minimum payment on that card, even though do everything in your power to make sure that you pay it off down to 0 every single month. Now, the 6th step is going to help you to raise your credit score, but more importantly, it's gonna help guarantee that you get the best score possible when you have it pulled. Because when you have someone pull your credit to see if you can get approved for another loan, you wanna make sure they pull at the right time to where the best score is going to come back. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, what are you talking about, Chandler? Well, here's how it works. Each of your credit cards or any of your other loans have a certain time when they report to the credit bureau. So what you need to do is you need to call all of your credit cards and any other loans that you have and figure out exactly when they report to the credit bureau. The reason you want to do this is you want to make sure that all of your debts that can be paid off are paid off right before they report to the credit bureau. So when they pull it, it's gonna show that all of your cards and debts have been paid down to 0, and that's going to help bump your score right when you need it bumped the most for when you're getting that credit pulled to see if you should get approved for that next loan. Now, those are all of the steps I'm going to give you today, and in future videos, I will give you more hints and tips and tricks to be able to raise your credit score. If you want to learn how to get approved for a home loan, I did a video here that's going to help you a ton to make sure that you get approved so you can get into one of those bigger loans. However, continue to watch the videos and make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can see all future videos and how you can raise your credit, keep it high, and continue to build wealth and create a passive income for yourself. Because that's really my goal, is to help you to use credit to build a huge passive income for yourself. So with that being said, hopefully this video helped you a ton. Just make sure, again, you push that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future videos. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.